It was a freak of nature what happened.
He came down with a panicked look on his face and just said, "Run, everyone run." Boulders came crashing down.
She was an only child. That really got me more than anything else, I think, having to tell their parents that I'd lost their daughter. Cave diving is an interesting side of scuba diving. You're going into caves where no one has ever been in the history of the world. A lot of people deem it to be a very unsafe sport. You try and get life insurance, but they usually just ask me to leave. They just consider it too dangerous. In 1988, we set out with a film crew to make a documentary on Panakan Plains. Very few people had ever dived in there, but it was such a large and intriguing and beautiful cave, we thought may as well try and show the world.
Often when we think of caves, we think of these kind of horizontal walking passageways, but the area where Chris Brown was working was particularly challenging because they had to rappel essentially almost straight down to get to the bottom of the cave.
So that morning we went into the cave. It was the last day and we were going to bring all the gear out of the cave.
It was a very hot day, and most of the people found it a lot nicer in the cave because it was all about 70 degrees. So I came up on the surface and I could see in the distance some very large dark clouds coming towards the camp. It was a very strange looking cloud, and it was sort of the big formations of the cloud as though they're rolling over the top of each other.
The kind of storm system that was moving through Western Australia at the time was called a cut-off low, and it pulled in some unusually moist air for the time of year.
Suddenly, the full force of the winds hit us. Part of the roof of the caravan got ripped off and slammed into a tree only about 20 feet from where I was. Intensive rain like I'd never seen it before, with large hail.
I was working at the bottom of the second pitch, and Rob and Alan was saying, "It's raining outside."
And one of the girls with me said, "We'd be better off inside the trailer." During the next 5 minutes, it was actually quite terrifying. The winds got louder and the noise was absolutely incredible. The trailer started getting bounced around. One of the girls I was with was American, and she said to me, "This is a twister." And I said, "Don't be stupid, you're in Australia. We don't have twisters here." And she scolded me and said, "Sorry, I'm from Florida. I know what twisters are." After they had subsided, you could see the whole desert was flooded. All I could see was a sea of water.
When it rains this hard in a severe thunderstorm, there's no way for the earth to absorb the moisture. Instead, it runs off and turns into raging torrents. And in this case, they headed right for the mouth of that cave.
It was like the plug hole to a bath.
Wes came running down and said, "Run, everyone run." We could see rivers of water gushing through.
As this was going on, it caused the middle section of the cave to collapse.
Boulders came crashing down and the sound of thunder echoed throughout the cave. It was a really frightening sound. Yeah, I've never forgotten that sound actually.
I suddenly thought my future wife-to-be, Sonia, was down in the cave with all the other people.
We just sat there and listened to the sound, really. Listening to all the rocks come down, and occasionally you'd hear a tank coming down. We didn't really talk a lot, we just sat there. We wanted to conserve our lights, so we sat in the dark. We just didn't know how long it was going to go for and how long we'd be trapped in there. We just weren't sure how we were going to get out.
At that time I was a little bit lost about what to do. I couldn't get down into the entrance of the cave because of the amount of water going into the cave. And I suddenly remembered we had a through-ground radio which would go through 300 feet of rock.
Surface to chamber, surface to chamber. Are you receiving? Over.
Much to my amazement and delight, within 10 seconds I got a response back from Ron Allen, which was chamber to surface, receiving. His first question to me was, who is on the surface? I gave him the names of the 5 people on the surface, and it seemed like eternity. Ron came back. Chamber to surface, chamber to surface, all accounted for. That was a great relief. Everyone was okay. My future wife, Sonia, was still with us. And then the fun started. How are we going to get people out of the cave? Everyone's alive now, but we still had to get them out of the cave without losing anyone. Just by moving one wrong rock or stepping on one could trigger another avalanche. The police were sending an aeroplane in with some officers to take control of the situation, and they suddenly realised some of the members in our group had far more experience in this sort of thing than they had.
We realised that the cave was probably going to be a completely different cave, and this posed a risk to us in terms of how we were going to get out.
Wes and Rob have been up there. The bottom of that pitch area is just a new cave altogether.
It was cave exploring, but instead of going down, they were trying to find their way up.
We went down and checked through the cave to work out a route to try and get down to where they were. And over a period of 24 hours, through an approach from the bottom, eventually worked out a route where they could get through the collapse and out of the cave. The biggest fear was that while people were negotiating through this area, tons and tons in weight could easily be dislodged by just one little wrong movement.
As much as your adrenaline's pumped, you want to get out of there, that's when you really have to calm yourself down, move slowly, not exacerbate the situation.
It was decided for safety to send people up 2 at a time. So that if anything went wrong, you'd only lose 1 or 2 at a time.
They really were under the gun to figure out how to do this themselves with a little bit of technological help from the surface.
After 27 hours, the first of the people came out. Sonia, my wife, was about the 9th person out. She came up on the surface and I gave her a hug, and that was a great relief to see her.
It was a relief to see everyone and to be out and just to feel air on my face.
Over a period of about 6-7 hours, we finally got all 13 people out of the cave with no major mishap. And at that stage, then, I knew all was safe.
I suppose you need to be a bit of a risk taker and you need a bit of bravery to do cave diving.
I think this accident in many ways is inspirational. It also is a reminder that be prepared for the unknown.
I just keep enjoying pushing cave diving, going out, finding new places which no one's ever been before.